Taking a listen to the testimony from Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, along with the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, in front of the House Armed Services Committee. There was certainly some back and forth there with Ranking Member Adam Smith, a Democrat from Washington, and obviously we're hearing some questions there as well from Congressman Courtney, a Democrat from Connecticut as well. A couple things that stood out there as we were taking a listen to some of that testimony was, of course, we finally got the amount to which this war has cost the American people so far, $25 billion, according to Jules Hurst III. He is the comptroller and the chief financial officer for the Defense Department. It seems as if even the House Armed Services Committee had not gotten that number until now, when we just heard it in this testimony. Now, $25 billion so far for this 8-week-long war between the United States and Iran. I want to bring in Courtney Kube now, who is our senior correspondent covering national security, the Pentagon, and standing by for us outside of that room. Court, we just got, as I mentioned, right, the total amount that has been spent so far on this operation, $25 billion. There was also some contentious back and forth between Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Adam Smith as the congressman tried to drill down on the plan for dealing with Iran's ongoing nuclear program. And, of course, kind of checking the, quote-unquote, word that the president himself has used before, even before this war even began, which was that the nuclear program had, in fact, been obliterated during the operation that was carried out last summer. Walk us through what stood out to you in that particular exchange, and also the price tag that we've heard from this war.
Yeah, so Operation Midnight Hammer, that's the mission that we were talking about earlier. Last June, the U.S. military carrying out strikes against 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. And you'll recall that after that, there were weeks of contention by the Trump administration officials and the president himself that, in fact, Iran's nuclear program had been obliterated. But the reality is the facilities, yes, while badly damaged, the program itself, and it may have been stalled, but the word obliterated would indicate that it was completely gone and wouldn't be able to be rebuilt or would need to be completely started from scratch again. And that does not appear to be the case. As we were speaking about before, in fact, it appears that while those facilities were damaged, it's not clear whether the more than 400 kilograms of highly enriched uranium was actually even damaged throughout the course. Excuse me, I'm going to keep looking back here because we're waiting to see if either of the officials, any of the officials, walk through here so that we can ask them a question or two about what's been happening in the hearing room. As you mentioned, yes, one of the big takeaways in the very early stages of this hearing was that cost for Operation Epic Fury. Of course, that's the war that the U.S. started in Iran just over 60 days ago, February 28th. We heard from the acting comptroller that it was $25 billion. Now, here's the big question on that. We didn't get an answer to it. Perhaps we will in later questioning here. What exactly does all of that encompass? The comptroller acknowledging himself that that's the estimate for right now, but they don't have a final cost here because they're going to have to replace munitions and things. So what will that final cost be? Does that actually include the replacement costs of those munitions? Things like Tomahawk missiles that they fired off dozens and dozens of them. We know that they lost a number of aircraft, whether it was through accidents or being jammed or shot down by the Iranians. In fact, there were several cases where the U.S. military actually destroyed their own aircraft in the case of the rescue of those 2 F-15 airmen who went down behind enemy lines in Iran. So while that is a start, there's still a lot of questions. It's also not 100% clear whether, in fact, that total that he gave includes the blockade, which is ongoing, and which, at this point, there's no end date for when that could stop, Yaz.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.